But my dad didn't protect me. He made me go fight an older boy. So, we always like to do a shout out to the guys who are joining us online. And so I wonder if you would do that on three. 1, 2, 3. Hoorah! Welcome, men. We're glad to have you with us. So, started a series last week with an introduction, and today we're going to get more into the weeds here. From broken boy to mended man. From broken boy to mended man. So, we come together to look at what is possible because of the gospel of Jesus, allowing Jesus to call us to live in him, equip us to live like him, and then send us to live for him. So we're very much into how can we help each other become fully alive in Jesus. But sometimes we also need to understand what's holding us back. So while this series is all about healing childhood wounds, breaking the cycle for yourself or someone you love, or just being aware of this information so you can be a better steward of God's gospel, before you can get there, we need to understand how we need to look back and understand how it happened. So that's what we're doing for a few weeks here. We'll do it for a couple of weeks. This week, we're going to look at chapter 3 of the book, which is how our parents wounded us. How our parents wounded us. So on your outlines, if you have an outline in front of you, the first section we're going to talk about is what you need as a child. What you need as a child. Parenting is a sacred privilege, opportunity, and responsibility to look after the physical, emotional, mental, relational, spiritual needs of our children. So you've heard it said, you've probably said it yourselves many times, is it nature or is it nurture? So a parent receives a child with whatever nature it has. And then the parent has the responsibility to guide the child into healthy adulthood, considering the nature, but applying 4 different building blocks of a healthy home. And I want us to look at those briefly, just so you know what they are. The interesting thing that I've done in the book is I'm not dwelling on all of these things. I'm compressing it all down very quickly, a half a page or page on each different thing. So I want to give you these 4 building blocks of a healthy home. They're love, structure, roots, and wings. First is love. Love is kind of first among equals. In a healthy home, children feel safe. They feel secure. They feel like they're the gleam in their parents' eye. They have a self-confidence because they know where the boundaries are. A healthy home is a loving home. Positive affirmations, words, I love you, I believe in you, I'm proud of you. Physical affection, wrestling on the living room floor with the dad, mama kissing boo-boos. A healthy home is loving. The second building block of a healthy home is structure. Larry Crabb, the famous Christian counselor, said, children need to know, yes, I love you, and no, you can't have your own way. Yes, I love you, and no, you can't have your own way. When children are not given guardrails, they don't know how what's safe to do and what's not safe to do. So I've told this story many times. I think I don't know if I told this in the book or not, but anyway. So when our children were young, we went up on a hike on Whiteside Mountain up near Cashiers, North Carolina, and I let our children walk like 6 inches away from the edge of a cliff that plummets 750 miles, 750 feet down to the canyon floor below. Well, how was I able to do that? Because I'm an idiot? I'm an irresponsible parent? No, there was a guardrail on the cliff so that there's no way that they could fall off, right? But when children don't know where the guardrails are, they feel insecure. And so then they start withdrawing into themselves. So the two problems with structure are too much structure, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about different kinds of negative parenting in a moment. Too much structure or not enough structure. And both of those can be devastating. But when a child has the proper structure, knows what the rules are, knows what will happen when the rules are not obeyed, and those rules are consistently applied, and has the confidence of structure, then that's one of the cornerstones, building blocks of a healthy home. And then third is roots. So we have planted 7 live oak trees in our yard because we live in a hurricane corridor. So we wanted to make sure we planted trees that had deep roots. So a child in a healthy home will have roots, will have a sense that roots means that, we provide a secure and a safe place for a child. We provide them with food, shelter, and clothing, a good education. But we also give our children the safety of knowing that no matter what happened at school, no matter how badly they were bullied, that when they can come home, they're going to have a safe place where they can flourish. And so then the fourth block, building block of a healthy home, wings. This is independence. This is helping our children become a healthy young man or a healthy young woman who knows who they are. When we dropped our daughter off at a university that happens to be known for building character as much as education, the director of counseling spoke to the freshman parents and gave these different tasks that they were trying to build into the students, the freshman students and other students at the school. A sense of competence, healthy relationships, how to manage emotions, and several other things. Well, a child that grows up in a healthy home, the parents have already been building into those things, so the college is simply then extending that education rather than re-educating the children. But in homes where children didn't get the proper sense of independence, building independence, given responsibilities and a chance to flourish, helping them find some things they can do well, then that would not be a healthy home. So, but in a healthy home, you have those wings. So love, structure, roots, and wings. Those are the 4 building blocks of a healthy home. And if you grew up or your children are growing up in a home where you got the, the right cocktail of love, structure, roots, and wings, then this would be the big idea. To thrive, children need the right cocktail of love, structure, roots, and wings. In order for you to thrive, for your children to thrive, for your children's children to thrive, or the men in your small group for them to thrive, their children to thrive, they need to produce the right cocktail of love, structure, roots, and wings. These are the 4 components of nurture, and then they take into account the different nature. So if you or your children got this, then you would say of your parents, my parents were encouraging, or my parents were affirming. But what if you can't say that? If you can't say that, then you are probably part of the fraternal order of broken boys. And I want to talk to you now about how parents create wounds. So I've talked to you about what should have happened, but let me talk to you about what might have happened, and then how parents actually create childhood wounds. So Colossians 3:21, we're a Bible study. So the distinctive here in a Bible study is I'm going to relate things back to Scripture. Colossians 3:21, fathers, do not embitter your children. This word embitter sometimes is translated exasperate. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. The original Greek word literally means to stir or to stir up anger. So fathers who don't give their children the right cocktail of love, structure, roots, and wings, they are embittering their children. So fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. So courage, the ability to face hardship or disaster with confidence and resolution. To discourage children is to take that away from them, to take away the courage to be the kind of children that that God created them to be. So then, these are 7 different ways that fathers, your father, or maybe even you, or someone you love, has either received this kind of parenting or are giving it out. The kind of parenting that embitters children, provokes them to anger, exasperates them, and it leaves them ending up discouraged. So if you grew up as a discouraged person, you probably experienced one or more of 7 different negative parenting styles. Now, as we go through these, and I'm going to breeze through them, as we go through these, I want you to remember that you may identify with one or more of these 7 negative parenting styles, and you may have some other kind of a negative parenting style as well. So this is a taxonomy. I've created 7 different negative parenting styles. First one is so if you can't say my parents were encouraging or affirming, you might say my parents were passive. You had they were just not actively engaged and involved in your life. They weren't trying to understand where you were coming from. They weren't trying to encourage you to where you ought to go. They were just kind of letting things unfold. Very likely, if your parents were passive, they had passive parents too, and they were just passing along some kind of an intergenerational dysfunction or an intergenerational sickness. And it's possible too. You just think about it. If you grew up in that kind of an environment, it's very likely that you would be susceptible to pass that along yourself. But the whole point of this series is to show you how, first of all, you can heal for any childhood wounds that you've experienced, but then also break the cycle going into the next generation. So my parents were passive. My parents were absent, whether it's by death, divorce, mental illness, addiction, or maybe workaholism. Your parents were just not in the picture. So you came home to an empty house at the end of the day. You used to call them latchkey kids. Your parents were preoccupied with their own careers, their own image, their own success, and so forth, and you didn't get the attention that you deserved. I remember a young man telling me that he got unlimited internet access at 8, and then by 11 he was hooked on pornography, and by the time he was a early teen, he was having sex with another man's daughter, a younger girl, in her parents' bedroom because they were absent as well. So your parents were absent, and the third one is my parents were permissive. You pretty much had the run of the house. You could do pretty much anything short of murder and get away with it. They were very permissive. Um, my parents were permissive. I've said here before, my parents were so permissive that when I've never really talked about this publicly. I didn't put it in the book, but um, my wife, when we were dating, said to me, "I cannot believe how your father let you 4 boys talk to your mother." We were very abusive to my mom. We were not kind to her mother, and my dad let us get away. It was just very permissive kind of a culture in our home. My parents were enabling. So parents have the responsibility and the privilege of helping their children do things they can't do for themselves. But enabling is when parents do for children things that they can or should do for themselves, or don't hold them responsible when they do things that they shouldn't have done. That's enabling. In other words, if your parents were enabling, you were the center of their universe. You could do no wrong. I had a neighbor who had 2 teenage sons who took some rocks and knocked out the security lights on another neighbor's house. And then the father defended the 2 teenage boys and didn't hold them responsible. You should see those 2 teenage boys today. My parents were angry. So this is number 5. Your parents were angry. You had to walk around on eggshells in your house. You just never knew when your parents were going to explode. Anger was just always below the surface. It's just part of the culture. It created chaos. This is why you played at your friend's house as much as you could instead of your own house, because you just didn't know what was going to trip the anger wire with your dad, or maybe your mom, or both. Or maybe they were fighting all the time, and it just created such disruption and chaos. You always felt this tension in your chest you couldn't get rid of. My parents were demanding. Your parents gave new meaning to the word strict. They didn't have conversations. They issued commands. You were supposed to do what you were told, and not ask questions. So it was a little bit like a concentration camp, as one of my new friends said recently. My parents were demanding. And then finally, my parents were belittling. So some parents don't say enough positive words or have enough affirming kinds of comments. But if your parents were belittling, not only did they not affirm you, but they were negative. They were making jokes at your expense. Sometimes in public, they would humiliate you. They would make fun of body parts. Maybe your mother said, you're just like your father. You're never going to amount to anything. And so you've now been spending the rest of your life trying to either prove that she was right or wrong. That's why you have some low achievers. They're trying to prove that their parents are right, that they're losers. Or they're trying to prove that the parents are wrong by being overachievers. So you see this quite a bit. So these are the 7 different kinds of negative parenting. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to encourage you to go ahead. So when I was, and this is in the book, when I was in the 5th grade, we had a kid in the neighborhood. His name was Nunny. And Nunny, Nunny. Nunny was small. He's older, small but fierce, and kind of like the neighborhood bully. We were all terrified of him. So one day he decided he was going to beat me up, and he started swinging. And I ran into the house. And my dad forced me to go back outside and fight him. Well, the neighbors in our neighborhood, they all put out their lawn chairs and watched as spectators while Nunny and I got into this titanic fist fight that raged across several front lawns. This fist fight quickly turned into a wrestling match as we got tired. And he couldn't beat me up. I couldn't beat him up, but he couldn't beat me up either because of I had so much adrenaline, because of the fear. I was terrified. And so after, a period of time without much fanfare, the fight was over and, everybody went home. And so I guess it worked out, right? But my dad didn't protect me. He made me go fight an older boy, who, by the way, later went on to become much more violent, cutting another boy with a broken whiskey bottle, things like that. The other kid went off the rails. But he never bothered me again because he couldn't beat me up that one day. But as I've thought about that over the years, I said, yeah, it worked out, but I can't possibly imagine me ever making our son John go out and fight some boy in the neighborhood. I would be wanting to go and talk to the boy's father and see if we couldn't work it out, whatever. But it's so bizarre. So in the questions, you're going to have a chance to talk about your relationship with your parents or caregiver or whatever, and then also to look at these where you come out on the spectrum of these 4 different building blocks of a healthy home, and then also a chance to look at these negative parenting styles, just which ones you might identify with. So, and then next week, we will move into, so this is what should have happened and what did happen. Next week, this is the cause. Next week, we're going to be looking at the effect. We're going to be looking at, we'll probably take 2 weeks to do it, but we'll be looking at 9 different characteristics that adult children who grew up in dysfunctional homes share in common. And so the big idea again is to thrive. You as a child, your children, the children's of whoever you love and care about, to thrive, they need the right cocktail of love, structure, roots, and wings. The reflection and discussion questions are on your handouts. If you have a handout, you can see them on the screen. Let me read them for those people who are online. Number 1, how would you describe your relationship with your father, mother, or caregiver today? For example, you could say cordial, strained, warm, or estranged. Easy for me to say. Cordial, strained, warm, or estranged. Number 2, what was your childhood missing in the areas of love, structure, roots, and wings? And then number 3, which of the 7 generalized descriptions of negative parenting are most relevant for you? For example, my parents were passive, and why? So go ahead and do the questions, and you've got plenty of time now to talk about that. And let's have a prayer. Father, thank you for I guess this feels like a pretty serious, pretty serious topic, and I know it just so many men they just carry around so much amorphous pain that they've never really been able to understand or put into words. So I pray that this would be helpful to all of us, even if we grew up in a healthy home, that you would equip us to be better friends to men around us who may be still walking with the pain of childhood wounds. We ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.